Thank you, Sherelle. Really a pleasure to be here. Thank you, Lance, and thank you all for joining us. This is really an honor to be here with all of you. Uh, Patrick, could you pull up my slides and we'll get going here? Yeah, thank you. So I'm going to talk a little bit about something as a psychologist, which I feel is extremely important and is really a foundation for the psychotherapeutic work that I do with clients. And this is about anger and sadness. And if we can look at those slides again, anger is too easy during caregiving. Sadness is too hard. Next slide, please. And go, yeah, thank you. And all the material that I'm going to be talking about today is from this book, which Sherelle nicely said was published in 2025, the AARP Caregiver Answer Book. It's about 150 questions and answers on all aspects of caregiving. It just came out in July, and as you can see from the cover there, it's co-written with my wife of 35 years, Julie Mayer. Next slide, please. So I want to share a family photograph with you. This is my parents' wedding in 1957. And there's my mom in the lovely white taffeta dress on the right, and my dad in the snazzy white tuxedo on the left. And there's my father's mother, my grandmother, standing in between them, which is actually where she liked to be in their marriage. My grandmother was a very overbearing mother and mother-in-law who really wanted to maybe be the central figure in my parents' marriage. And my mother kind of put up with her until when my dad was 51 and I was 14, my dad developed brain cancer. And then what happened is that my mother and grandmother proceeded to fight about everything that they could possibly fight about regarding my father's cancer. They fought about where he was going to be treated. They fought about what treatments he was going to receive. Though my mother had the legal right to make decisions for my father's care, my father unfortunately lost the power of speech and was not able to really express his own wishes. My grandmother felt it was her right because she loved my father more to make decisions for him. So my mother and grandmother were very, very angry with one another during my father's cancer. My father died 10 months later, and my mother and grandmother then did not speak again for 17 years until the day of my wedding 17 years later. And I share this story by way of saying, this is my original family caregiving story. This is what actually kind of set the mold for me to become a psychologist focusing on family caregiving. This was all about anger. My family was riven apart by anger. I still had a relationship with my grandmother after my father died. But when I would go to visit her and my grandfather, my grandmother would just badmouth my mother all the time. And that anger made it very difficult to be with her. Next slide, please. And now this is another family photograph from 2017. And this is these two smiling people here are me on the right, looking a bit younger, and my mother on the left. As Sherelle mentioned, my mother had vascular dementia. This was actually very close to the end of her life. This was about a month before she died. And we look like two peas in a pod, like we are happiest as could be together. But the truth is, during the 7 years that I took care of my mother and her second husband, my stepfather, my mother and I fought like crazy, just like my mother and grandmother had fought. My mother didn't want to give up control of her life. She didn't want me to help her in any way. She felt that receiving care from me was disempowering for her. And so she pushed me away as much as she could. And for safety reasons, I couldn't allow her to do that. I needed to care for her the best I could to ensure that she would be okay. But we had many, many battles during those caregiving years. They were not peaceful years. They unfortunately were angry years. And that has unfortunately, in the years since my mother died, has made grieving her harder. It took me years to stop being angry at her and really to feel more of the sadness, which I believe is underneath most of the angry feelings that come up at caregiving. Next slide, please. So I have seen in my clinical practice and in the speaking I do that there are many caregivers that are angry. And I think that there are benefits of anger. I don't want to say that anger is just all wrong. I think that there are benefits. So when caregivers express anger, they're, as it says here on the slide, they're able to vent some of their frustrations, which they have many frustrations, as many of you probably know. Sometimes they don't feel like they can be heard unless they really raise their voice. And by being angry, they draw attention to their concerns. And sometimes they have to express anger or just express themselves very forcefully in order to prove other people wrong or to have some influence over their behavior, because they don't feel like they can be heard or have any influence otherwise. So the anger becomes a way of magnifying their voice. Next slide, please. We also know that there are plenty of reasons why caregivers can be angry or even should be angry. And so the research suggests that caregivers who feel like they had no choice about caregiving, or they often cope worse with caregiving, and they often feel very angry. Folks who feel very trapped by their caregiving, they're trapped by the joylessness of it, by the drudgery of it, are very angry. And oftentimes, when caregivers feel like they're bending over backwards and making sacrifices to care for a care receiver, and that care receiver, instead of being grateful, is resentful toward them, that often makes that caregiver very angry too. And you can see lots of, a number of other reasons here on the slide. But the point of the matter here is that there are legitimate reasons for caregivers to be angry. The point is that I'm making today is I don't think anger is the best emotion to help us deal with caregiving. Next slide, please. The other thing that goes on in caregiving, which often causes anger, are the kind of family dynamics which occur. So imagine this is a sister and a brother, and the sister says to the brother, "Dad seems to be slipping cognitively. We need to help him more." And the brother, instead of saying, "Sure, sis, how can I help?" Brother says, "What are you talking about? I spoke with Dad last week and he's fine. You're always trying to control everyone. Leave him alone." Now, that's not a very generous response on the part of the brother. As a matter of fact, it's quite a rejecting and critical response. And this sister, I will guarantee you, will get angry at her brother for his response, legitimately so. But her anger at her brother is not going to bring the two of them together in caring for their father. Next slide, please. Or to share another family situation, this husband says to his wife, "You're never home. You don't make dinner anymore. What's happening to our marriage?" And the wife says, "My mother has dementia and needs my help. I cannot neglect her. You can take care of yourself for once. Why can't you support me and not criticize me all the time?" And I have seen many couples where this issue comes up, where the spouse who is caring for a parent feels like the other spouse should just let them do what they need to do. And the fact is, sometimes the other spouse is not so understanding, and that leads to anger. Next slide, please. But I will tell you that in my experience, that families who are involved in caregiving, that when anger is the dominant emotion, those family members don't fare well. Those caregivers don't fare well, because it doesn't bring them together. A house divided doesn't stand. That what happens is, as it's happened in my family with my fathers and my grandmother and my mother, is that there are long-term schisms that result. Because the feelings that people have during caregiving, sometimes the hurtful things that are said, often have an afterlife after caregiving is over. People remember what was said, and those relationships are sometimes either strengthened during caregiving because people pulled together, or they're weakened because they pulled apart during the time that they were caring for someone. What I believe, and really what the gist of my short talk is today, is that when family members can share sad feelings instead, they're much more likely to come together, to commiserate with one another, and to really be together in emotional communion about what's going on with the care receiver. Next slide, please. So why is sadness so important? And I actually think sadness is the most important and the most healing of emotions that human beings have. That when we have many reasons during caregiving to be sad. We certainly grieve the care receiver after they die, but we have much grief during the time that they're declining. We have a lot of grief about how the family life is being disrupted by the caregiving. We have a lot of grief about the sacrifices that we have to make, the friendships we have to step away from, the hobbies, maybe even the jobs we have to either cut back on or quit in order to take care of someone. And I've also seen that, however, that many people are afraid of sadness. They're afraid that they're going to get overwhelmed by sadness, or that sadness is like a slippery slope, that they allow themselves to feel sad, that they're going to slide all the way to the bottom of the slope, and they're going to wind up being severely depressed. And I can tell you that's not the case in 99.9% of the folks that I work with. So anger becomes a shield or a cover to help them avoid sadness. It's easier to be angry than it is to be sad, but that sadness is normal and is crucial for personal growth, and is crucial for coping with caregiving. Next slide, please. So how do we turn anger into sadness, which is really a lot of what the clinical work is that I do? And I think the most important thing on the slide is seeing the forest for the trees. And let me tell you what I mean by that. When I was my mom's caregiver, I could be angry at her for not allowing me to organize her pill box. I could be angry at her because she spent money I didn't want her spending. I could be angry at her because she has a doctor's appointment at 11 in the morning, and it's 9:30 in the morning, and she still won't get out of bed, and I can't get her out of bed. She just won't get out of bed. There are always things every day that we can find during caregiving that are frustrating, that are irritating, that we can get angry at. But when we step back and see the forest for the trees, what we see is a picture of someone we love who is declining. And there's so much sadness to that. And that we're not just feeling it, they're feeling it too. They may be resorting to anger, but if we resort to anger in kind, we're only exacerbating the situation. And we're almost in a kind of collusion with them to avoid the sadness. It's really important to trust that all of us can bear sad feelings, that there isn't a slippery slope leading to depression, that we have to accept anger, that that's something that's normal to caregiving, but we can make the choice not to express it, because expressing it can often be hurtful. And I would say that when we're able to be more empathic, to even when someone is angry at us, to be able to understand that beneath their anger is sadness, then we're able to better support them and connect with them. And when we're able to model sadness, model our own vulnerability by expressing our sadness, we better enable them to also express their sadness. When we express our sadness, they express their sadness about just what a sad situation this is. We pull together. We care for one another better. We have stronger family relationships in the long run, rather than have weaker ones because anger has torn us asunder. Next slide, please. So I like this photograph because ultimately this is what we want. We want to really be together and in a loving way with one another, caring for one another. But if what we're dealing with, if the situation is a sad one, sometimes the best route to coming together like this is to be sad together. Next slide, please. As I mentioned, as you heard Sherelle mention, I've written 4 books, 3 of them on family caregiving. The most current one, the one that just came out in July, is the one on the left, the ARP Caregiver Answer book. The middle one is all about inspirational stories for caregivers that, again, I co-wrote with my wife. And the first one I wrote years ago, almost 20 years ago now, was all about the 7 most important tasks that all caregivers ought to pay attention to. And that includes why that includes allowing yourself to be sad. Next slide, please. Here's my contact information. Always happy to interact with folks, with caregivers, and with folks who just want to talk. And the website has all information about my background. But I want to thank you again for your attention today. Thank you, Sherelle. Thank you, Lance, for this opportunity. And Patrick, you can take my slides down now. Thank you.